This is a unique story of a boy named Park Allen. He has an extra talent than most of us, that he can see ghosts. One ordinary morning, while he was brushing his teeth with half-open eyes and zero enthusiasm, a stunningly beautiful witch drifted toward him as casually as if she were stopping by for tea. Allen glanced at her the way one glances at a wall, politely ignoring her existence. But when the stench from her ghostly breath reached him, his patience evaporated. Without ceremony, he threw a powerful punch and sent her flying away. Apparently, seeing ghosts was one of Allen's many talents, and punching them into the afterlife again was another. Allen had only one dream, that he wanted to earn $1 million, and since part-time jobs felt too mainstream, he had decided to hunt ghosts for money instead. Entrepreneurship, but make it supernatural. Later, we see him sitting in his college classroom, quietly staring at his crush, Soyeon, with the kind of intensity reserved for final exams and unrequited love. Just then, two unfamiliar boys approached him. In hushed, dramatic tones, they warned him about dangerous spirits roaming around and suggested that if he joined their club, they would protect him from ghosts. Allen did not dignify their offer with even a fraction of seriousness. He simply walked away, leaving them mid-pitch. That night, those same two boys stood outside a girls' high school. Rumor had it that the spirits of 6 girls haunted the place, and that many lives had been lost there. The boys were determined to record the ghosts on camera for their YouTube channel. Armed with shaky courage and a camera, they entered the girls' restroom in search of paranormal fame. Unfortunately, their grand ghost hunting mission ended when a cat jumped out and scared them so badly they ran as if they had just seen their own tuition fees rise. Meanwhile, at home, Allen's uncle, Monk Ming, had returned. The two sat down to eat together. Ming was a retired monk and, like Allen, he could see ghosts. However, age had weakened his eyesight, and ghosts often appeared to him as blurry inconveniences. He did not want Allen to continue this dangerous work because hunting spirits could easily cost him his life. Just then, Allen received a message from a girl. She explained that there was a ghost in her school and asked if he could drive it away. If he succeeded immediately, she promised to pay him $100. The moment Allen heard the amount, he told his uncle he needed to study and rushed out. He went straight to the girls' school to meet the mysterious benefactor. Instead of a frightened student, he encountered a beautiful schoolgirl witch. The moment he saw her, he grabbed and slammed her to the ground. She shot him a furious look and demanded how he could hit a girl like that. Then she stood up and retaliated with such enthusiasm that Allen barely had time to regret his career choices. After being thoroughly beaten, he stumbled away in tears. Elsewhere, we see a chubby witch sitting comfortably on her boyfriend's head. Even death had not convinced her to give him personal space. Soon, the girls' school witch, whose name is Ballerina, arrived. The two were ghostly best friends. For reasons unknown, neither of them had found peace after death. Ballerina, however, had lost her memory when she died and remembered nothing of her past. The chubby witch confessed that she wished her boyfriend would die soon so they could reunite properly in hell and enjoy eternity together. Romance, apparently, had no expiration date. Even mortality was just a scheduling inconvenience. The next morning, Allen ate breakfast with his uncle, as if nothing supernatural had happened. But when night fell again, the YouTuber Choi and his friend In Rang returned to the girls' school for another attempt at ghost fame. This time, Allen also arrived, armed with his uncle's magical sword. As soon as he entered the school, he began searching for Ballerina. When he found her, she attacked him immediately. During their chaotic scuffle, something unexpected happened. They accidentally kissed. The moment their lips touched, a brief flash flickered through Ballerina's mind. She saw people standing around her, holding umbrellas. Her memory was faint, but real. Then she snapped back to reality and promptly knocked Allen down with impressive efficiency. Meanwhile, Choi and In Rang were reviewing footage when they spotted a ghost on camera. The spirit suddenly began chasing them. Even Allen and Ballerina panicked upon seeing it and ran. Allen, in a less than heroic moment, fled alongside Choi and In Rang, leaving Ballerina behind. Outside the school, In Rang gasped that the ghost was the perverted teacher who had died in the girls' restroom. Hearing this, Allen rushed back inside. He found the English teacher's ghost attempting to force himself on Ballerina. Allen immediately stepped in and began fighting the ghost. ballerina grabbed him and instructed him to attack the ghost from behind. If he struck the head, the spirit would be destroyed. Alan followed her advice and defeated the ghost. Afterward, he discovered something surprising. The person who had offered him money to remove the school's ghost was none other than Ballerina herself. Despite being a ghost, she was terrified of the other spirits haunting the school. Alan demanded his payment. Ballerina admitted she had no money. Furious, he stormed off. But as he tried to leave, the security guards caught him, mistaking him for a thief. Meanwhile, Ballerina went to meet her chubby friend and excitedly explained that her lips had collided with something soft earlier, and when they did, fragments of her past began to surface, though she could not fully understand them. The chubby witch suggested that she should collide her lips with that soft thing again. Back at the school, the security guards handed Alan over to the police. Soon after, Uncle Ming arrived at the station. The officers respected Ming greatly, so they released Alan without much trouble. However, Ming had now learned that Alan was killing ghosts for money. He scolded him harshly and warned him to stop immediately. Later, while walking home, Alan encountered Ballerina again. He demanded to know what she was doing there. Without hesitation, she floated toward him and tried to kiss him again. Alan pushed her away and hurried home. Unfortunately for him, ghosts do not respect personal boundaries. Ballerina followed him inside his house and continued pestering him. Exasperated, Alan asked what she actually wanted. She replied that he would have to help her. What she wanted, quite simply, was another kiss, but Alan refused, and that is where things became even more complicated. Alan had barely managed to push Ballerina away when she returned yet again. This time, he waved a book of spells in front of her face and ordered her to disappear. The moment she saw the sacred text, she retreated in irritation. Later, after tossing out the trash and heading toward college, Alan found her floating beside him again. She followed him all the way to campus, hovering around him like an unusually persistent shadow. Just then, Choi and Inrang appeared. Choi leaned closer and revealed that he knew Alan could see ghosts. He proposed that if Alan joined his team, it would benefit both of them. Alan, however, treated the offer with the same enthusiasm one reserves for spam emails and walked away. Inside his classroom, there was a new professor named Minjuk who had just joined the college. Alan was busy admiring his crush, Soyeon, when the new professor asked if anyone could prepare a lecture for him. Soyeon immediately raised her hand, and before Alan could react, Ballerina mischievously lifted his hand as well. As a result, the professor assigned both Alan and Soyeon to prepare the lecture together. Meanwhile, Choi was deeply troubled. His subscriber count remained painfully low. As if that were not enough, their landlord arrived at their door and warned them that if they did not vacate the room by next week, they would be thrown out. Desperation pushed them to a firm decision as they had to become friends with Alan at any cost so they could use him to capture real ghost footage. Meaning the chubby witch was still sitting on her boyfriend's head when her eyes landed on Professor Minjuk. Instantly enchanted, she abandoned her boyfriend and began chasing after the professor. Loyalty, it seemed, was not her strongest virtue. That same night, a dangerous witch appeared beside a sleeping man and killed him mercilessly. At another location, while Alan was working out, Ballerina was playfully riding on his back. When he moved to the kitchen to cook, she stood beside him, continuing to irritate him. Frustrated, Alan asked why she did not return to her home. She confessed softly that she did not remember her home or family at all. Just then, Uncle Monk Ming arrived. Alan quickly signaled Ballerina to leave because Ming, being a monk, could see ghosts after chanting specific spells. On another side of town, Soyeon was wandering through the market when she noticed Professor Minjuk working at a maternity animal clinic. During their conversation, she learned that the veterinary clinic belonged to him. That night, after Ming fell asleep, Ballerina slipped into the house. Seeing Alan asleep, she leaned down and kissed him, hoping it would restore her lost memories. The last accidental kiss had triggered faint visions. However, Alan woke up suddenly and chased her out once more. The next morning at college, Soyeon greeted Alan warmly, and the simple good morning filled him with happiness. Soon after, he received a phone call asking to come for a ghost hunting part-time. He informed the caller that he would arrive in 2 hours. Ballerina asked where he was going, but he retorted sharply, questioning why he needed to explain himself. Choi and Inrang noticed Alan speaking as if to empty air and realized he was conversing with a ghost. Alan had been called to a boarding house where a man had been killed the previous night by a ghost. As Alan approached the room and opened the wardrobe, a woman pulled him in it, and the horrifying truth unfolded. The ghost was actually the man's wife. She had died first because her husband used to beat her, and one day he killed her. And now, as a spirit, she had killed her husband as well. So the wife's spirit told Alan to leave immediately, and when he opened the wardrobe, Alan witnessed her husband's ghost grabbing Ballerina and throwing her down. Alan immediately engaged in combat. Choi was live streaming for YouTube, but he could not see the ghost at all. Ballerina assisted Alan, instructing him to strike the ghost in the stomach. Alan followed her direction, and together they managed to destroy the spirit. When the husband's soul was destroyed, the wife finally freed from their twisted state. Her soul finally found peace. Outside the building, Alan demanded to know why Ballerina kept following him. He added teasingly that she must have enjoyed their kiss. She clarified that her memory was gone, but during that kiss, fragments of her past had surfaced. Hearing this, Alan gently kissed her again. After the kiss, Ballerina suddenly ran away. The following day, the chubby witch appeared in the college cafeteria to meet Ballerina. She excitedly announced that after 30 years, she had finally found her dream prince, and he was a professor at this very college. She then asked whether Ballerina's lips had collided again with that mysterious soft thing. Ballerina clarified that it was not a thing, but a boy's lips. They had touched again, but no new memories had returned. The chubby witch suggested that Ballerina should ask the boy to help her with her secret ghost exams. Perhaps that would trigger something. So Ballerina approached Alan again. He asked impatiently what she wanted now. She admitted her memory still had not returned. She proposed a deal that if he helped her with her studies, she would help him kill evil ghosts by identifying their weak points. They would split the payment evenly. Meanwhile, Choi was still obsessing over growing his YouTube channel. Meanwhile, at a mall, Ballerina wanted to eat meat, so she tried to grab a packet of meat, but Alan stopped him and began teasingly pulling it away. The entire staff watched their childish tug-of-war in silent disbelief. Elsewhere, a malicious online commenter named Sadaku was harassing Choi through cruel comments. Soon, he received shocking news that a famous singer named Ms. had committed suicide. Before her death, she had sent her final video message to Sadaku. When he played the video, Mrs. Spirit appeared and killed him. Back at home, Alan had bought Ballerina a toothbrush. She was overjoyed because in 5 years, no one had ever given her anything. Even ghosts, it seemed, appreciated small gestures. Sometimes love begins not with grand confessions but with toothpaste and a brand new toothbrush. Later, as Alan cooked dinner, Uncle Monk Ming arrived and, without hesitation, devoured all the food the moment he sat down. Because Uncle Ming had devoured every last bite of food, Ballerina was left with nothing to eat that night, and her irritation simmered dangerously. As if that were not enough, Ming casually went to wash his teeth from her toothbrush, which only made her fury rise higher. It is important to understand that Ming could not see Ballerina unless he chanted a spell first, whereas Alan had the effortless ability to see ghosts without any ritual at all. Later that night, Alan woke from his sleep and noticed Ballerina lying beside him. She looked cold, shivering faintly in the darkness. Without saying a word, he gently covered her with his blanket and stepped outside to sleep on his own like a perfect gentleman. The next morning, Ming informed Alan that he had to step out for some work, but promised to return before the anniversary of Alan's mother's death. Even as he spoke, he felt as though a ghost lingered nearby. Alan dismissed the feeling and insisted it was merely his imagination. Meanwhile, Choi tracked down Sadaku's address in search of answers. When he entered the room, he found Sadaku lying dead. Panic spread quickly, and the police were called. Both Choi and In Rang were taken to the station for questioning. During interrogation, a junior officer revealed that the late singer Ms. had previously filed a complaint against Sadaku for posting vile comments about her. The officers also discovered that a user named Black Star had written similarly disgusting remarks. Choi nervously admitted that the Black Star account belonged to him, but he insisted that Sadaku had hacked it and posted those comments. Elsewhere, Alan was heading home after class when he spotted Soyeon. Ballerina urged him to ask her out for lunch, but his courage failed him. Instead, Ballerina kept rambling about food, clearly starving herself. Hunger, it seemed, was her most consistent personality trait. At the same time, Professor Minjuk noticed a girl named Ju feeding stray cats. One of the cats had recently given birth. As the professor examined the animal, it suddenly scratched him and ran away. On his way home, Alan found himself arguing with Ballerina again, this time about food. Suddenly, Inrang rushed toward him in desperation and pleaded for help. He explained that Sadaku had hacked Choi's account and insulted Ms. Now Sadaku was dead, and he feared Choi might be next. He promised Alan $1,000 if he would save Choi's life. At that very moment, Mrs. Ghost attacked Choi. She was about to kill him when Ballerina intervened and launched herself at Ms. A fierce battle erupted between the two spirits. In the middle of the fight, Ballerina demanded to know why Ms. was doing this. Ms. cried out that she had wanted love from everyone, yet all she received was hatred. Ballerina responded firmly that until Ms. learned to love herself, no one else would truly love her. Ms. was seconds away from striking Ballerina down when Alan arrived and hurled Ms. aside. As she lay there, Ballerina's earlier words echoed in her mind. Realization dawned, and the bitterness she had carried dissolved, and her soul finally found peace. As Alan and Ballerina began walking home, she asked wearily whether he would cook meat that night because she was exhausted. He told her to head home while he went to buy it. By the time he returned, she had already fallen asleep. Quietly, Alan burned a pretty dress while whispering Ballerina's name. Moments later, her outfit transformed. The last time he had bought her a toothbrush, she had been overjoyed. Now, after 5 years of wearing the same clothes, she found herself dressed differently for the first time. She rushed to Alan, glowing with happiness, proudly showing him her new dress. Meanwhile, Ju returned to feed the cat, only to discover it had died. On the other hand, Professor Minjuk examined the scratches on his arm. This was not the first time animals had attacked him. There was something unsettling about him that creatures seemed to sense immediately. Elsewhere, a girl was bathing in a hotel room when a ghost touched her legs. Terror overtook her instantly. The next morning, Ballerina floated straight into Alan's room without warning, only to find him changing clothes. He erupted in embarrassment and anger. Inrang later told Choi that they would need to pay Alan $1,000 to ensure his protection. Before they could decide anything, their landlord smashed the door open and threw them out for failing to pay rent for months. Ballerina soon ran into the chubby witch and excitedly showed her new dress. The chubby witch burned with jealousy, wondering who had sacrificed such an expensive outfit for her sake. After flaunting it proudly, Ballerina returned to Alan. At college, Alan and Soyeon were helping the professor when he walked straight past Ballerina. During class, Ballerina whispered to Alan that she felt the professor might actually be able to see her. After class, Soyeon went to meet Ju, who was terrified, and she asked why she had not attended. A flashback revealed the truth that Ju had witnessed the professor killing the cat. Shocked, she had fled the scene, but the professor's pen had fallen near the cat's body. Later, Soyeon handed the pen back to the professor. When he asked where she had found it, she replied that it had been with Ju. Meanwhile, Monk Ming visited a friend for medical treatment. He shared that he had gone to see Alan's father, but the man had left that place 10 years ago. It seemed he was still searching for that evil spirit. He also added that when he visited, the landlord mentioned another young man had come earlier, asking about Alan's father. Back at home, Alan was tutoring Ballerina so she could pass the entrance exam for ghosts. Even death could not free someone from studying, apparently. The afterlife had an academic system too. However, Ballerina invented endless excuses to avoid studying and eventually fell asleep. The next morning, Alan left her sleeping and headed to college alone. On the way, he spotted Choi and Inrang and walked over to them, unaware that even more chaos awaited. Alan marched straight up to Choi and demanded the money he had been promised for saving his life from Mrs. Ghost. Choi scratched his head awkwardly and admitted they would return the payment in 2 days. Soon after, Choi and Inrang decided to reinvent themselves as professional ghost hunters and headed to a hotel notorious for paranormal activity. No guests ever stayed there because of the haunting. In truth, after being thrown out of their apartment, the two had spent the previous night in that very cheap hotel, only to flee in terror when a ghost nearly claimed their lives. Meanwhile, at Professor Minjuk's clinic, two employees whispered among themselves, wondering why he had shut down his clinic in a big city and opened one here instead. Something about the decision seemed suspicious. Choi later invited Alan to meet him. When Alan arrived, Choi treated him with exaggerated hospitality and explained that there was a ghost in a hotel that needed to be driven out. In exchange, he promised $2,000 plus the earlier unpaid amount, so the trio headed to the hotel. Alan began searching for the spirit while Ballerina dozed off. Suddenly, the ghost appeared and began touching Ballerina inappropriately. Alan immediately intervened. The ghost retaliated by spinning Choi and In-Rang in circles and beating them mercilessly. Ballerina, in a bold move, drank beer and spat it into the ghost's face. He hurled her aside, but she quickly instructed Alan to strike the ghost in the chest. Alan followed her guidance, attacked the chest, and the spirit was destroyed. That same night, Professor Minjuk encountered Ju on a quiet road. The moment she saw him, she ran. He vanished from behind her and reappeared in front of her, blocking her path before killing her without hesitation. The next day, Alan updated his passbook at the bank. Ballerina peeked at the balance and realized he had accumulated a considerable amount of money. Together, they left for college. Choi and In-Rang, meanwhile, were overjoyed. The hotel management had paid them $4,000 for removing the ghost, leaving them with a hefty profit. They sought Alan out and invited him to join them at a seminar hall. There, Choi proposed a business partnership that he would bring the jobs, Alan would handle the ghosts, and they would split the profits. Alan initially refused, but Ballerina scolded him for thinking only about himself and urged him to help them. Reluctantly, he agreed. Later, as Alan headed to class, Soyeon approached and suggested they walk together. After class, Professor Minjuk invited both of them to lunch. Ballerina sat beside Alan, but he shooed her away and gestured for Soyeon to take the seat instead. Furious, Ballerina smacked him and stormed off. During lunch, the professor casually asked Alan where his parents lived and whether he had ever contacted them. Alan grew suspicious and questioned why he was asking such personal things. The professor smoothly changed the topic. As Alan finished his meal and prepared to leave, Ballerina muttered that perhaps Soyeon did not like Alan at all, but liked the professor instead. Back home, Ballerina examined photographs of Alan's parents in his room. At that very moment, we see Professor Minjuk staring at the same photograph elsewhere. Meanwhile, in a home, a man heard a child laughing inside a house and stepped in to investigate. The moment he saw a child's ghost, he fled in terror. The following day, Choi and In-Rang arrived to pick Alan up and took him to an apartment where a child's crying could be heard. Upon arrival, they went to negotiate payment with the building's chairman, while Alan went to search for the ghost. Nearby, the security guard was trying to chase away a strange woman who kept entering the society despite being told not to. Elsewhere, Monk Ming visited a woman to obtain a talisman for exorcism. The woman mentioned that a boy named Park Allen was exceptionally good at driving away spirits. Ming's anger flared instantly, as now he knew that Allen had continued hunting ghosts despite his warnings. Back at the apartment, Allen searched for the child's ghost. The moment the child saw him, he ran and hid. However, another spirit was also searching for that child. A flashback revealed the horrifying truth. The child's stepfather was sleeping when the boy turned on the television. Furious, the stepfather dragged him into a room and beat him brutally, so brutally that the child died. Later, the child's mother killed her husband in revenge. The strange woman at the apartment was the mother, traumatized beyond recovery after her son's death. In the present, the father's ghost located the child and began attacking him. Allen arrived just in time and fought the father's spirit. He struck hard, and Ballerina joined the battle, but the father's ghost fought back fiercely. Allen was knocked down, yet rose again and attacked with such force that the father's ghost was finally destroyed. Afterward, Allen led the child's spirit to his mother. She could see her son. The child embraced her, and in that heartfelt moment, his soul found peace and was liberated. The scene then shifts into a poignant flashback. When Allen was little, his mother had returned as a ghost to see him one last time. She had said her farewell in the same gentle way, leaving him behind with a memory that never truly faded. Alan's mother had died in a horrifying way. A malicious spirit had pushed her in front of a moving car, ending her life in an instant. The memory struck Alan like a blade to the chest, and he quietly walked away, swallowed by grief. On the road, he ran into his uncle, who was sitting alone with a drink in hand. Ming looked at him with tired eyes and admitted that he knew exactly what Alan had been doing. He warned him that if he continued down this path, he would have to answer to his mother's spirit someday. After saying he had some work to attend to and would meet him later, Ming left him standing there with that heavy thought. The next day, a man trekking through the forest stumbled upon a dead body, the same one Professor Minjuk had murdered. He immediately called the police. Meanwhile, Alan woke up to find Ballerina sleeping peacefully beside him. He dressed carefully that morning and headed to the temple because it was his mother's death anniversary. He prayed earnestly for her soul. His uncle was there too and asked whether Alan's father had ever called or written. Alan replied that there had been no news from him at all. On another side of town, Choi and In Rang had earned enough money through Alan's help to reclaim their old house. They returned triumphantly, overjoyed to be back. Even their YouTube channel was starting to thrive. Ballerina went to meet the chubby witch and confessed shyly that whenever she saw Alan, something strange happened inside her chest. Her heart raced uncontrollably. The chubby witch teased her, suggesting that perhaps she had fallen in love with that very boy. Soon, Choi and Inrang invited Soyeon to join them for a picnic. Choi then informed Alan about the plan. Alan initially refused to go, even though Ballerina was eager. Choi and Inrang knew Alan's greatest weakness and had already prepared their move. Choi casually mentioned that he, Inrang, and Miss Soyeon would go without him. The moment Alan heard Soyeon's name, he instantly changed his mind and agreed to join. Sometimes jealousy works faster than Wi-Fi. The next day, the four, technically five, including Ballerina, set off for the picnic at Inrang's villa. Though Inrang came from wealth, his family had forced him to stand on his own feet. Ballerina was enchanted by the house. Suddenly, Inrang slipped down the stairs. Ballerina rushed to him and asked if he was all right. Strangely, after falling, he could see her. He blinked in shock and wondered aloud whether she was an angel. When Choi helped him up, his ability to see her vanished again. Inrang insisted he had seen an angel, but Choi dismissed it as drunken nonsense. Later, Choi sent Alan and Soyeon to buy ramen from a nearby store. Ballerina noticed that ramen was already available at the villa and realized Choi had lied to give Alan and Soyeon time alone. She rushed to warn Alan, but he went anyway. When he returned, he brought ice cream for everyone. Ballerina sat by the riverside when she noticed another witch lurking in the water. Just then, Alan appeared with ice cream for her, and the river's witch disappeared, and the group gathered to eat together. Choi teased Alan and Soyeon, suggesting they looked perfect together and should start dating. Ballerina burned with jealousy, muttering insults under her breath as she watched them grow closer. Meanwhile, after discovering Ju's body in the forest, the police arrived at the college for questioning. They asked Professor Minjuk about Ju. He calmly replied that he barely knew her, claiming he had only recently joined the college. Back at the picnic, everyone posed for photographs by the river, but Ballerina kept ruining Alan and Soyeon's pictures out of jealousy. The detective assigned to Ju's murder case learned that Professor Minjuk had rejected several prestigious offers to teach at this modest college, which deepened the mystery. That night, Professor Minjuk sneaked into Alan's house and stole a book. As he left, he encountered Monk Ming outside. The professor merely remarked that it had been a long time and walked away, leaving tension hanging in the air. Meanwhile, Inrang drank excessively and once again began seeing Ballerina's ghost. Choi insisted he was simply intoxicated and sent him to sleep. Later, they played Truth and Dare. When the bottle pointed at Soyeon, Choi asked if she liked any of them. She quietly admitted that the person she liked was not present there. Alan's heart sank, and he walked away silently. The next morning, Soyeon sat alone by the river when the river witch suddenly dragged her into the water. Alan rushed in at the right moment and saved her. However, he assumed Ballerina had pushed Soyeon out of jealousy and angrily scolded her without reason. Soyeon was injured from the fall, so Alan went to buy bandages. The shopkeeper warned him never to return to that river, explaining that a ghost there had taken many lives. That river had a reputation darker than exam results on report day. Meanwhile, Ballerina was sitting there and she was very upset because of Alan's behavior. Suddenly, the river witch pulled Ballerina into the water. Now the questions linger. Will Ballerina survive the river spirit? Where has Alan's father disappeared to? Which spirit truly killed his mother? And what is Professor Minjuk hiding behind his calm exterior? To uncover these secrets, subscribe to our channel.